I think of it as a 2-generation loss. So if your gran taught your mum, then your mum probably has passed on some skills, but there's a 30-year gap. And in many schools, it's not taught at all because they no longer have the space in the curriculum or the actual physical space to teach textiles at all. That the emphasis on textile education in schools is on learning to use machines, and that we've moved away from understanding our clothing and being able to just fix things regardless of your creative abilities as a core skill. So we've got huge gaps. Most people say, my gran does that.
So what is your vision for Repair What You Wear, and how are you contributing now?
We provided core skills teaching, and we've developed a model of teaching essential skills so that people can mend 75% of their clothing just with those skills. So we're training people up to teach those skills, to be a pebble in the pond, and we provide the resources. We've got different specific mends which are available on both our website and on YouTube, and growing in number. People are finding them and teaching themselves, and we are looking at changing the attitude in education so that we see clothing knowledge and clothing skills, including mending skills, as part of a core curriculum with students aged between 11 and 14 before they make subject choices. Because that means that they see textiles as beyond creativity. It could be the science of it, it could be the social studies of it, the global business, the sustainability challenges, and they can work on those as topics in their own particular area, so that we have a greater understanding of our clothing back in society, and it's never been more needed. So that's my aim.
And you bring a huge background to this, cutting across the textiles themselves as well as the teaching. So it's interesting and you're really doing it as a volunteer effort.
It's a legacy project. That has its challenges, because if you're not clearly associated with an organisation which has status, then you're not necessarily taken seriously. But we had to think about whether we should be charging society for what could be and should be core social skills. We're filling the gap that's left with the lack of understanding of the need of hand skills in a sophisticated tech-savvy environment. And we are free because in the past you used to learn for free. And so we're just perpetuating that. And, I just can't bear the idea of not contributing to society, really.
How could you be better supported?
I just want people to understand what we offer, to take the time to engage with it. We had a meeting this morning, didn't we, with somebody who's highly influential in schools and development of social needs, and they knew about us for quite a long time, but they didn't really understand the resources. And when they looked at them, they were amazed because they fill so many gaps.
It's a holistic approach, really, isn't it? And our clothing and what we wear is as integral to what we eat every day and our food, yet it's not quite recognised as that, perhaps because fashion often dominates the agenda.
What we wear often defines who we are and how we feel about ourselves. So it's understandable that people want to be perceived in a certain way. And I can't knock it if people like things and being creative and everything. And that could include buying more than they need, or changing seasonally, being influenced by peer groups. But we need as a society to realise that there is a strong environmental cost, a really big environmental cost. And if that's not acknowledged or known about, then the individual doesn't have the power to change their decision making. And we do have some serious environmental issues we have to face. It is the one area that we can, as individuals, have control, because we can't control what our local transport policy is going to be. We can't necessarily control all our food packaging. There's lots of areas about which we are powerless. But what we buy, how long we wear it, how we maintain it, are within our control. It also has a huge financial benefit, especially in the boring things. In the UK, we have to wear school uniform. And yeah, you want to look nice, but you can often fix things very inexpensively and nobody would notice. And that's a big financial saving. So.
In what other ways does understanding more about what we're wearing help with our health and well-being?
You have more control, and control is always good for well-being. And obviously you can get pleasure and relaxation out of the process of mending. It can also be something you do in a rush, as I sometimes do before I go out and I realise that there's a hole somewhere, and you just fix it. But knowledge is empowering, and empowerment and feeling confident about your decision making and more in control of your life is good for mental health.
A sense of agency and autonomy and being resilient, I guess, at this time of, where a lot of things are outside our control.
Yeah, resilience is really important, and you can feel justified if you have a lot of knowledge about textiles and things you wear. Then if somebody were to question you, or you can justify it with facts, and not as well as your personal preferences, but you can feel grounded in your decision making.
I'm impressed with the little workshop that you have where, you can work with 5 skills that you can learn within 1.5 hours to mend your clothes. Can you summarise that for us?
Okay. Well, if you look at the nuts and bolts of mending, if you learn right at the beginning, then with just threading a needle, learning how to secure it, backstitch, hemming stitch, buttons and ladder stitch, you can mend most stuff. If you have to patch, then that's a running stitch. But because you've learned those core skills, which are more complex, then a running stitch is nothing.
And I love that you've got a left-handed and a right-handed worksheet as well.
And videos. The core videos are all right and left-handed. It's really important. You can't teach it very easily. If you're right-handed, it is difficult to rethink that process when you're teaching a left-hander. So they do need to have something, a visual aid. And we've got both the visual and the written, so that a left-hander is well equipped to gather the skills.
And where are they available? What's the web link, or how can people find your wonderful assets?
We are available on repairwhatyouwear.com. Go to Core Skills to see all the essential skills, right and left-handed. PDF downloads takes you to written instructions. If you choose to teach or run repair cafes or be in a school, any kind of environment, you can take the materials off the website, download them, print them. You can replicate it any way. We don't capture details, and we don't market. It's a freely available resource.
It's very generous of you, Ros. Thank you for your contribution.
Well, Ellie and I are thrilled that we've made a big difference. We've had nearly 1 million views all totaled of our teaching videos. Now, by YouTube standards, that is tiny, but imagine mending getting that kind of views. It's good.
And every school child really can benefit from this as well, can't they?
Yes, because if it's not, everyone can benefit, because you can go on your own and learn on your own as well. And it's like learning from an aunt. It's not that sophisticated.
And how does all this apply to your own wardrobe? Can we have a bit of a look around there and think about how do you make clothing choices and maintain your own things?
I usually shop by colour and texture. So I've got a wardrobe that kind of is a rolling process. And then twice a year I review it and I work out what the gaps are and what stuff is on its way out. And then I'll make minor alterations to stuff, like shorten a shirt, change the lower shape of a pair of trousers or something, and fill the gaps with very specific things that I think will extend it. Every now and then I find something in a charity shop, or which is a thrift shop, or in a sale that is really me, and I buy it. I don't like event wear. I think it's a huge waste of money. And if I could influence society in any way, I'd say always rent or borrow your event wear. Otherwise, just choose things you really are going to like for a long time.
And so from a mental health perspective, thinking about your clothes and just how you feel, like I guess that's what drives the fashion agenda in a way, isn't it? But obviously your choice to go on colour is a great thing, a timeless thing, isn't it? So what other tips would you have for anyone looking to minimise the impact of their wardrobe?
Work out which shape suits you best and keep that shape. So for instance, I wear a lot of scarves in the winter, but what I don't own are shirts. So I don't, even if it's in fashion, I won't wear a shirt with a collar. So discount it. I wear quite short fitted skirts, or I wear long floaty ones. I won't wear anything in between. So even if a pencil skirt, or it's not in fashion now, but even if there's an alternative, I don't buy it. And so I've worked out what is my style and what is flattering and able to be mixed, and stick with it.
Yes, because I think that's the thing. Often identifying what works for us is not always easy, particularly for young people, easily influenced.
That's why it's so difficult too to buy without trying. I know I'm older, as you can see, and so it used to be that you had to try before you buy. But it's so attractive the way I've also worked in catalogue marketing, so I used to do all the photographs. So you can make it look really attractive, but you're not going to look good in it unless it's really right for you. And so if you do get to know what suits you and stick to it, it does help. Even helps the new buying online. Yeah, and always look at the fibres.
Yes, yeah. Let's talk a bit about the fibres. So this is part of your training package as well.
Yeah. On our educational resources, we have different videos on fibres and also written information on fibres. And I usually talk about it when we're doing a mend. Well, obviously, I think if you're going to buy cotton, buy organic cotton, cotton with a good provenance, better cotton, that sort of thing. If you're buying cellulosic cloth, buy Tencel, buy a brand where it's circular, the production is circular and it comes from sustainable forests. But learn about fibres as well. So fibres are the most important piece of knowledge you have in your fashion wardrobe. Because if, for instance, you go around and buy loads of viscose items, the provenance of the trees, you may not know it's made from trees, are is really important from an environmental perspective. 200 million trees were felled last year for viscose products or cellulosic fashion products, which is now 8% and of the overall sale of goods. And people don't realise that that comes from trees, and the volume is so big that much of it is from indigenous and ancient forests now. So you have to look to buy something where you know that there was a fast-growing wood and that the production method doesn't influence the environment. So that means not buying fast fashion at all.
Well, and 2/3 of the fibres are actually polyester as well, or synthetics. And we know the problems that they have now, but it still seems to be quite a dominant fibre.
It's now 60, heading towards 60%, isn't it, synthetics? One thing I think is about synthetics is that they have certain characteristics that are good for function, but it's not universal. So they don't keep you warm. They're cheap to produce. They don't biodegrade, and they have microfibers that leach out in the washing process. But it could be that you need them to protect you in certain, for instance, environments. So you need to buy something that is well made and lasts. For instance, an outdoor coat. And I live in an area where we have vicious winds, quite a lot of rain, and so you need the function, but then buy it to last. And simply don't buy it at all for high fashion. Choose another fibre, because there is usually a choice when it comes to fashion, because the characteristic of the fibre is not necessary in a fashion item. The overall message has to be to reduce, drastically reduce. There is no one fibre that's the answer, except possibly wool. But people who are vegan find wearing wool difficult. But there's no one fibre that's going to be our fashion solution. It's volume that's causing the real damage.
That's a really good point. And what about maintenance as well? This is something that's kind of been lost a little from the grandmas. So maybe can you share some tips for looking after your wardrobe?
Oh, well, it's really old-fashioned. It's the smell test. If it smells, it needs washing. If it's really dirty, it needs washing. If spot clean, don't wash too often, and don't wash on too long a wash, because you'll bash the item into out of existence. Hand washing is not if you've got a huge family, but hand washing can be quick. I just don't wash stuff if it doesn't need washing.